The third method of logical reasoning is the inverse deductive method. J.S. Mill is the chief advocate of the inverse deductive method. It is a combination of inductive generalizations obtained by means of the comparative method or by statistical method with deduction from more ultimate laws. It is a way to arrive at reality through experiment, observation and conclusion. This method starts with the use of deduction and then uses the method of induction to find out the reason of the phenomena which is under study. The fourth argument is in the form of analogy. Analogy is a process of reasoning between parallel cases. In this method, conclusions are arrived at by reasoning of resemblance, where from partial resemblance or agreement of two things or issues to each other. J.S. Mill says that two things resemble each other in one or more respects. A certain proposition is true of the one, therefore it is true of the other. Case law involves reasoning by analogy. In practice, the judiciary proceeds on the basis of a number of options of resemblance of relations or attributes between cases by applying the old rule to the new case. A fortiori is another method of reasoning. This phrase is used in logic to denote an argument to the effect that because one ascertained fact exists, therefore another which is included in it or analogous to it and is less improbable, unusual or surprising must also exist. A fortiori in Latin means with even stronger reasons and applies to a situation in which if one thing is true, then it can be inferred that a second thing is even more certainly true. For example, if something is prohibited, then it is assumed that anything more obvious is prohibited. Now let us recapitulate what we have learned so far in this module. In logic, there are two distinct methods of reasoning, namely the deductive and the inductive approach. Deductive reasoning works from the general to the specific. This is also called a top-down approach. The deductive reasoning works as follows. Think of a theory about topic and then narrow it down to specific hypothesis. Hypothesis that we can test or can be tested. Narrow down further if we would like to collect observations from hypothesis. In a conclusion, when we will use deduction, we reason from general principles to specific cases, as in applying a mathematical theorem to a particular problem or in citing a law of physics to predict the outcome of an experiment. And inductive reasoning works the other way around. It works from observation or observations towards generalization and theories. This is also called a bottom-up approach. Inductive reason starts from specific observations, look for patterns or no patterns, regularities or irregularities, formulate hypotheses that one could work with, and finally ended up developing general theories or drawing conclusion. In a conclusion, when one uses induction, he observes a number of specific instances and from them infer a general principle of law. These two methods are very different in nature when used in conducting researches other than being top down and bottom up. Inductive reasoning is open-ended and exploratory, especially at the beginning. On the other hand, deductive reasoning is narrow in nature and is concerned with testing or confirming hypotheses. Comparing the two reasoning, we first recollect the properties of deduction. In a valid deductive argument, all of the content of the conclusion is present, at least implicitly in the premises. If the premises are true, the conclusion must be true. Valid deduction is necessarily truth preserving. If new premises are added to a valid deductive argument, the argument remains valid. Deduction is erosion proof. Deductive validity is an all or nothing matter. The conclusion of an inductive argument has content that goes beyond the content of its premises. A correct inductive argument may have true premises and a false conclusion. Induction is not necessarily truth preserving. New premises may completely undermine a strong inductive argument. Induction is not erosion proof. Inductive arguments come in different degrees of strength. In some inductions, the premises support the conclusions more strongly than in others. But some philosophers have doubt that induction is really a method of logical reasoning, since observations of past instances may never be sufficient to give us certainty about what will happen in future. For example, observing billions of white swans does not imply that all swans are white. Thank you.